When did Randy become so gorgeous?
Yeah. No, it was like a row of porcelain urinals.
And then Randy had like great teeth, and then he somehow pulled off
urinals, I said. It is fight week, which means
Wait, that's how we're doing this now?
Well, okay.
Go ahead and start it. Yeah, go ahead and start it.
It's fight week, which means it's fighter meetings, which means you are coming face to face with Jon Jones. What happened?
Guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's Chael Sonnen, who, hey, we should maybe alternate, because you did that really good.
I appreciate that.
But okay, you know how I just no-selled you?
Yeah.
That's what happened to me at the fighter meeting.
Oh, is that what we just did?
He didn't show up.
He didn't even show up?
No, bro, John took a walk.
Okay.
Listen, man, the show's built around him. He decided to take a walk right around the time the fighter meeting started and
walk around New York, literally.
Wanted to walk the city.
All right.
And I said, well, the timing doesn't necessarily work. And that would have been the first time that him and I got to sit down and talk in that way.
And that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And would that have been awkward for you?
I think it would have been okay. Because here's the deal. I think there's a misconception that I still have these bad feelings towards Jones.
Yes.
I don't really care one way or the other. I just really don't know that we should all try to give people a happy ending.
Sure.
They got the happy ending with you and Anderson.
Sure.
Right? Oh, you guys are friends, you're hugging. It doesn't have to be like that always.
Right.
Right? And I think so, as long as him and I understand that, we can shake hands and then go about our business. It's all good.
I respect a good grudge. I guess what I would have predicted would happen is that perhaps on John's side, he would assume you were going to take shots at him, or he would assume that you were going to talk up Tom Aspinall. That seems to be a sore subject with him this week.
God.
He does not want to talk about Tom, and I feel like...
But he shouldn't know.
He should not.
He should really be focusing on what's right now.
Yes.
So...
It's wise what he's doing. The psychology of why he's doing it, he's putting himself where he needs to be. He needs to be victimized. He's got to be a white knight that's out there to save something. Stipe called him the B word, which really there wasn't a lot on it, but John made it. He tried to make it into something.
Did, yeah.
And then the other thing is, you had better focus on that fireman. And in all fairness, that guy's not here to play and never has played with anybody in his career, not to mention he's got some world titles on the mantle. And I only say that because if you're trying to deal with him while promoting a fight with Tom, while you got Pereira sitting over here, it's a lot for anybody. So I kind of understand where John is putting a stiff arm to it, but I think that people are misinterpreting. I do think that he'll fight Tom. That's just not today's business, and he's going to fully focus on this one guy, to the point that he's saying, I might even be my last guy.
Yeah.
But that's more from the attitude of everything I've got is staying with him. And as a fighter, it's a very mature stance by John. So it's annoying people, but it's a good stance.
Yes. I think what's happening, and this is that was the first thing I wanted to ask you, was it's fight week. From everything you've seen, everything you've taken in, what did you think they looked like? Which, I mean, obviously you just talked about it in great detail, but here's the deal. Jones and his stance can be appreciated. I think where the issue is, he's getting mad about it. So, and like you said, he loves to be the white knight, right? He loves to be that guy. That's why, you remember whenever he, I don't know who it was. Somebody was getting robbed.
Yeah.
They saved that person and became the world champ tonight.
He fought Shogun.
It was perfect, right? That is the type of story he loves to write. Right now, there's this guy that is not even in front of him, getting thrown in his face. And every answer he gets, he feels like it gets twisted. Yeah. So I think that I really do agree with you on he needs to be locked in on what's happening now. But I think the way that people are accepting his answers is what's bothering him. And I think that is why he's a bit snappy, right? He's like, well, Tom's just a beep, beep, right? Yeah. Because there's no other way for him to go, please, guys, stop talking to me about this guy.
You beeped and then you said the curse
I did
word.
say the word. Yeah, I might as well just say it, right? They press that button. There's a button that bleeps it out anyways, right? So... Yeah, but I think that's what's annoying him, and that's why he feels a little testy this week.
Okay, and I agree with you. You had initially kicked this off by asking me if there's anything that I had noticed this week. I saw an interview by Stipe, and I will tell you he is nothing less than beautiful in terms of the shape that his body is.
Aesthetically.
Oh, my goodness. So his wife
Big.
and Stipe, they teamed up together because she was doing the cooking. He thought after his last fight, which turns out to be 3+ years ago, but he thought he was going to draw right back into Francis.
Yep.
He thought, I got to have more man. I got to be more size. I got to get back up close to that 246, 248 number where he fought you first time at. And I share that because he went out and he put on 17 pounds, and he didn't draw into Francis, but he did draw into Jon. And so we do wonder, well, what do those 17 pounds look like? Generally, when a guy gains 17 pounds after sitting on the shelf for 3 years, he doesn't look good. Stipe looked fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying good. Good's a word. I would say good. He looked fantastic. And I want to tell you one thing on Jon. I have fought on steroids. I have fought being off of steroids. And Daniel, and not as many times as I claimed, by the way, I got better at taking them. And I'll tell you why. There is a psychology that it will play on your mind. No, this is just the truth. Psychologically, it will play on your mind. And you will start to question yourself. You'll say, Chael, I'm in the locker room. Right before I got to walk out, I got my gloves on. I've already done the warm-up, and now I'm zeroing in, and I have to ask myself a question. Have I done everything that I know how to do to prepare for this fight? And the answer was no, I didn't. I used to have something that made me a little stronger, helped my endurance just a little bit. I don't have that. So whatever I'm going into, if I was to compare that to a previous fight, it's going to be harder. And it doesn't go any further than that, but that is the psychology. Those are the things that you have to ask yourself. Jon Jones is coming in clean. Picogram or not, he's coming in clean. I can take one look at his body. I look at Stipe. He's got a meaningful size advantage. He is going to hit Jon. He is going to swing at Jon harder than any man has hit Jon or swung at Jon, at least in theory. And I don't know that I could say the same thing coming back. Look, if you want to beat Stipe or you want to find somebody that did beat Stipe, they got to shut him off. He's never quit that I've seen.
No, he won't.
He's never faded in the 5th round to where the judges give the decision the other way. I can't think of a time, I didn't actually look this up, I can't think of a time anyone's ever beat Stipe without turning him off. I don't believe that Jon Jones can shut Stipe off. Stipe is a harder fight than people are aware.
You know, the first time him and I fought, I was heavier. I was like,
We're talking Stipe?
Stipe.
Okay.
I was like 5 pounds heavier. I was like 245 pounds. He was like 240. Then he got smaller because I was faster. Today was the first time, or yesterday when I interviewed him, where I sat next to him and went, wow, this dude is big. Because I never fought him in the 250s. I always fought him when he felt like he needed to be smaller. Yesterday, I saw Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight that knocked out Fabricio Werdum.
Yes.
I saw Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight that weighed in at 250 pounds that beat Junior Dos Santos. And I thought to myself, he's massive. Yep. His back is so wide. Yep. His hands are so big. And he doesn't look like he's carrying any fat. He put on 15 to 20 pounds of muscle for this fight. Now, Jon Jones will tell you, when we fought in Anaheim, he goes, I was looking at Daniel and I saw his shoulders and he looked like he was in this great shape. He's going to look at Stipe and go, holy shit. Yep. He's going to look at Stipe and go, man, he's big. He's strong, right? And if Jon is not having anything and he's fighting him completely clean, as they say the sport is today, you're going to look at that guy going, he's really big, he's really strong. This is my first true heavyweight test. Now, granted, Jon Jones is probably one of the smartest guys in the Octagon I've ever seen.
Agreed.
His skill set allows him to be that because he's so good at everything that in terms of fighting, he's so hard to really pick an avenue to get through that he's going to be a tough fight. But the size of Miocic, I truly do believe that at some point it's going to play a factor in this fight. Yep. It's going to play a factor. I don't know if it's going to be early. I don't know if it's going to be late. But at some point they are going to come together. And he's going to be grabbing Jon. And Jon's going to go, I fought many men in the clinch, but I've never felt anything quite like this. Yep.
No, I fully agree. And the approach for Jon is very important. You know, earlier we were talking about he's getting angry over being called a bitch, and he's saying, I'll never even fight Tom as a way of focusing on Stipe. We understand what we're attempting to prove there is that the approach is very important. Jon Jones used to train with the top heavyweights. I don't think Jon needed to miss a single day and could have gone up to heavyweight. Particularly if he knew he was going to draw Surreal just by example. But Jon didn't believe that. Jon believed it. I've got to put on weight. Now, he walked around at 225 to 228.
I thought he could fight at heavyweight at his light heavyweight weight. I swear to God he could.
No, precisely. I think he's kind of like Alex Pierre, where we could just move him right on up. But I only bring that to you because he did not. He passed on many tens of millions. I mean, 3 years off is 9 fights. You're looking at over $80 million that he passed on because it was so important to him. And I only say that I'm strengthening your point that when he looks at Stipe and goes, whoa, that's a real heavyweight. For Jon, that does matter. And this is going to be a big guy. I texted with Stipe's wife this morning. I just want to get a little insight on the weigh-ins. And I just told her, over, under. But
you must have a good relationship with the Miocic. You're texting his wife?
She's the one that texts me back. He's saved in my phone as somebody else. Leah told me not to say it. She goes, Chael, whatever you want that to sound like, it doesn't sound right. But I had his number. I was texting with him. I found out it wasn't him. It was her number. So anyway, I just kept texting. She took over a managerial role. Not to mention she's the nutritionist. She's quite literally the cook in the house. And I just said over, under 250 pounds. If we got a 255 Stipe, all muscle, I mean, I feel like we're going to see the line move. She didn't get back to me. It's the first time she's ever not gotten back to me. And I interpret that after seeing him yesterday. I mean, I'm sitting here and telling you how beautiful his body looked. I saw him in his shirt, Danny. His muscles, his traps were popping out through the shirt.
Yeah.
He was modeling a shirt on accident. I'm going, man, would I look that way in that shirt? I'm telling you, I'm not convinced he's not closer to 255 and that he's light selling this.
Yeah, he's big. He's big. He looked bigger. I'm telling you, man, first time I've ever felt like, but again, Jones seems to be in a great place, great spirits. When he's away from the media, I think right now the media is what's annoying him because you have this third person who's not quite a part of the equation, but he is.
Sure.
He really is part of the equation. It doesn't matter how you want to shake it out, no matter how you want to spin it. Tom Aspinall is a part of the story here, man.
He'll be in the front row with a belt that looks a lot like the one that Jon has.
Front row in the belt with a belt. And also, as the interim champion, hoping that he gets an opportunity to walk in that cage after whoever wins to start to do business. Because if he can manage a way to get inside that octagon after, you cannot say I'm not fighting him. Because now business has already started.
Yep.
We will get to that. But Chael, Tom is such a big part of the story. Jon is annoyed with it. Jon taking the stance that he's taking, does that hurt the legacy? Because he flat out said it. Tom's an ass.
Yep.
Tom's an a-hole, is what he said. Doesn't like him. I don't want to do business with him.
Yep.
Does that hurt the legacy?
Yeah. If there's any, if there's anybody that says, look, there's a guy in your era, a guy of your time that you didn't face, it becomes a problem. The great untouchable Khabib had a guy named Charles Oliveira that got a pretty good run, and they were from the same era, and that was the one guy that he never actually competed with. And that was starting to become a question. Now, that stopped when Khabib's pupil and disciple went out and beat Charles. But I'm just sharing for you, it's a very natural part of the sport. Jon thinks kind of like almost like he's being isolated or he's being picked. But let me lay this out for you because Jon isn't totally on third base wearing a catcher's mitt here. If Stipe beats Jon Jones, Stipe will have beaten Francis, he'll have beaten Daniel Cormier, he'll have beaten Jon Jones, he will retire, and he will retire as the greatest heavyweight, and it's going to be a really wonderful thing. But he never fought Tom. The question won't even come up, why didn't you fight Tom? It will never even touch Stipe. If Jon is to fight and beat Stipe and then retire, his whole legacy gets questioned.
Why is that, though? That's
why
what annoys
is that?
Jones.
That's what annoys him.
Yes.
I think that he makes. It would annoy me too, Daniel.
No,
it would annoy me
that's
too.
That's what's annoying him. It's like Stipe's not getting the same thing.
Sure.
But even in doing that, though, right? I asked Miocic that in the fighter meeting. I go, isn't it disrespectful that they're talking as if it is a foregone conclusion that Jones keeps the belt?
Yep.
'Cause, I mean, Jones said, I would even give up my heavyweight title to go fight for the BMF title against Alex Pereira.
Saw that.
It's like, it's disrespectful to Stipe, but he is a part of the story. But I got to be honest, I don't really buy into the world of fighting where we just forget everything that a person's done prior to what needs to happen right now. I don't think it affects his legacy.
Unfair.
Man. You don't get rid of nothing affects your legacy after Shogun, Rampage, Machida, Evans, Cormier, Chael, Anthony Smith. I mean, there's 15 people.
He had them all.
I mean, there's 15 people.
Yep.
Nothing affects the legacy if you've done that.
Sure.
And I mean, the ones I listed, the first 5 or 6, all champions and Hall of Famers.
And to your point, like the actual story of the legacy, that is how it will be told. An artist, and I know this is a martial artist, but to make my point, an artist is more valuable in death and even if it's the death of a career, and that's the one thing Jon doesn't understand is if he were to retire, if he was to do what Stipe did and say, hey, I wish the next crew the best of luck, he would not be dealing with this. It's because he's present. It's because this is what we do. This is the business. This is what keeps the lights on. Jon doesn't understand that he feels like it's personal and it's signified just to him. He's actually wrong about that. If he were to retire, we would not bring it up. We would celebrate the career of Jon Jones. But because he's still around, yeah, man, you start pulling in these different directions, and it's fun. And Jon doesn't understand that that's a compliment to have two guys that you can face. We went 3 years with no opponent. Now he's got two guys that are going to be in the same building in 2 nights that both want a piece of him. He's in a very good spot. And then you've got the business with Alex Pierre. I mean, Jon Jones is in a really wonderful spot to do some really wonderful nights that don't involve Francis Ngannou, whereas 3 years ago, it all involved. 2 years ago, it all involved Francis. So I don't think that Jon sees it from that perspective. He happens to be in a weight class that's very healthy right now, and is largely healthy because of him.
He feels like he's getting attacked. Because one statement was...
Where are you looking, by the way? Are you looking at me, or do you turn to the camera?
I'm looking at this thing right here. So I'm looking at this thing right here.
No, I mean, do we talk like that, or do we turn to the camera?
I'm kind of thinking to my... No, there's no camera to turn to.
Oh,
I'm
all
kind
right.
of thinking, right? Like, I kind of go off into space when I think. I'm thinking about this quote that Jon said. And this is how I know he feels attacked. He said, I'm 37 now. You finally found somebody that's 7 years younger and 25 pounds bigger. So now you want me to fight him? Why should I risk it?
Yep.
That tells me he's like, they're attacking me.
Yep.
I'm on the defensive. They think they got somebody that can beat me. This guy who's bigger, who's younger, is dangerous to me, or it would seem as though he's dangerous to me. And the world thinks, okay, we got him. It feels like he feels like the world has been waiting for him to lose.
Yes.
When in reality, I feel like the world has been very forgiving of him and everything that he has done.
That's right.
In the sport. But I don't think he's as much of a victim as he thinks, and it's coming off in some of the things that he's saying. But it seems like he's thinking to himself, they finally think they got me.
Sure.
And when you feel like somebody is trying to get you and they think they got you, you're not going to give them the opportunity to get you. And it feels like that with Jon in that regard. Now, Chael, Tom Aspinall is here, interim champ, backup fighter.
Yep.
How do you play that if you're Tom? Me personally, I would be like, I want to be at the press conference. I want to be ever present.
Yep.
If you're Aspinall, I want to be as present in this thing. I'm requesting Embedded to follow.
Yep.
I would be the first backup fighter to be featured during the fight week because I would want to be that present on Jones's mind and in the fans' mind, knowing that if something happens, they're going to be forced to fight me on Saturday night. And if whoever wins Saturday night, they recognize that I'm so there, you have no choice but to fight me. But I don't think that's Aspinall. He's still just being a nice guy again.
No, that's right. That isn't totally who he is, but I've seen that work. Ryan Bader tried that on you. Yeah. Ryan Bader stormed a press conference after having a couple of drinks, and I think he wanted to take a microphone and start asking you questions. Either way, Ryan Bader got his desired result.
Yes, he did.
He pissed you off.
Yes,
and he got you to say it's going to be you right now, young man. And I'm only sharing that. I think if we were to back up to the last pay-per-view, we saw Diego Lopez, who was the backup fighter. He was clearly the guy that history says goes next. But Volkanovski jumped into the cage.
And it's over now.
You can't unwind it. You can't unwind it. And even the champion Ilia Topuria was saying, hey, I'd like to fight both of them. He was going into business. He's cutting a promo. And then all of a sudden, one of them's in front of him. He's like, hey, I respect you. How are you doing? And it's going to be you. And it is very important that Tom gets in there. Make sure you understand. However this fight ends, it's still Tom and Jon next. Allow me to explain. If Stipe wins the title...
and Jon's fighting him.
Yeah, that's right. If Stipe grabs the belt and he walks off, we got a vacated title that draws you into Jones versus Aspinall, except now Jon doesn't have the leverage. Jon doesn't get to say no. Jon's asking for the fight.
We kind of believe that if Jon loses, we have more of a chance of seeing him fight Tom Aspinall.
Now it's just done. Now there's no talk back and forth. If we don't do it, we put the belt on Tom. You're just one of the boys in the division that's going to work your way back to fight Tom, or you can have him right now, or you can retire. And he doesn't have walkaway money. That just isn't a reality. And the other side of this coin, and I would like to bring this to you, Jon is going to have to make a choice. All the older guys that helped to build Jon and the legacy gave this younger, scary guy
an opportunity.
Chance. That's
we're
right.
old.
And now, it was much older. And now you look at, Jon, he's fighting a much older guy in Stipe. So to want to return that, all of a sudden you have a built-in cushion. You have a younger, bigger guy. That's true. Or you have a 37-year-old who was also a light heavyweight who came up, and that's Alex Pierre, and all of a sudden you don't have an excuse now. You don't have anywhere you can go. You must defeat this man. There is no reason I can't beat a fellow 37-year-old who did the same thing, which is take over this weight class and come to this. And I'm just sharing. I don't know what John's psychology on that would be, but most fighters would take the one that if I lose, the audience will accept this loss more. And I'm just bringing that to you ahead of time because those two guys are going to have a little back and forth, Aspinall and Pierre. Right now, it's all about Jon Jones, but sooner or later, these two are going to figure out, well, maybe we got to do this first, and the winner gets Jones.
You know, I think if you're Jones, you take that guy. You take Pereira, smaller, made 85. There's no world in which Jon Jones could ever have made 185.
That's true.
Pereira is not a guy that can wrestle. Tom Aspinall, even if Tom's wrestling ability isn't great, he's so much bigger.
Yep.
It's harder to take him down. And he's athletic. He's younger. I think when I fought Jon the second time, I was 38 years old, right? 38.
Yep.
I mean, was he 29, 28?
Yep.
Right? He's a young guy. And right now, he really is just on the receiving end of what we all felt in the beginning. Luckily for him, though, he's the guy with the belt and he's the guy with the juice.
Yeah.
He's got the juice.
Hey.
But if I'm Tom Aspinall, I'm being disrespectful. I would be the guy Jon is saying I am.
Right.
I would be an a-hole.
Right.
I would be that. I would start talking. I would make him say every time he saw me, "You're just a backup fighter. You don't matter." And I'd go, "Well, I'm here."
Yep.
And if something happens, will you fight me Saturday?
Yep.
I would continue to press.
Great point.
Because then, again, dude, everything is footage. Dude, that's the world we live in, right? This is always present.
Yep.
Somebody's going to see you and Jon arguing, and that's going to go into the next countdown.
And that's all promotion.
And it's going to go into the next embedded. Somebody's going to put it on Instagram. And the more it starts to roll, the better the opportunity is for you to fight. Because at the end of the day, I truly do believe it's going to be an amount of money that is so great that he can't turn away. That's going to make him fight Tom Aspinall, and that only happens if Tom Aspinall somehow builds interest in it. He really is not an a-hole, man. He's probably the nicest guy.
Yeah.
He's got some new teeth, too.
He got new teeth?
You see Tom's new teeth?
No, he got a nice smile.
Man, Tom got some big old white teeth, and they just go straight across the bottom.
Really?
It
How
is
would I
beautiful.
do with those? I thought about
Yours
those
look
because I
nice.
like the whiteness.
But yours are nice.
Really? They think so? I wasn't fishing for a comment. Thank you for saying that. But I have looked at those, man. Some of those guys, they got that beautiful smile. Randy came out walking.
Oh, my God. You remember when Randy got those
new teeth?
new
He was
teeth?
handsome with those new
I was
teeth.
like, when did Randy become so gorgeous?
Yeah. No, it was like a row of porcelain urinals.
And then Randy had like great teeth, and then he somehow pulled off.
urinals, I said.
He somehow pulled off like not hiding that he had the male pattern baldness.
Right.
He would leave it a little bit, but because his teeth were so good and he had that nice tan, Randy Couture was a good-looking
They
gentleman.
put him in movies.
He
All of a sudden,
did.
he's a movie star. All right, I didn't know that about Tom, but it is an interesting place that we're in and what Jon is going to do. But see, Daniel, one thing about it, we've had a hard time even talking about it ourselves, Stipe and Jon, without quickly going to Tom. Tom is a part of the story. This UFC is amongst the most pivotal in history. It is possibly the most pivotal to set up the heavyweight division for 2025. Whatever happens in 25, I think that Pierre and Aspinall is a lot
You
more
think
possible.
he's going up to heavyweight, huh?
Pierre Aspinall specifically in January in California is a lot more possible than Pierre versus Uncle Liev right now. I just shared some inside scoop, but I'm sharing that with you.
Pulling the curtain back on the
Yeah, we'll see where that whole thing ends up, but I'm only saying none of it happens. Whoever gets Jon next, whatever happens, doesn't happen until Jon and Stipe handle this piece of business at Madison Square Garden. This fight, this chapter sets up the rest of the book. The book doesn't work without this contest.
And this contest does dictate whether we move on.
Yeah.
Right? It's another one of those fights where we're either moving into a whole nother era of fighter, because if Miocic is vanquished, that whole generation of heavyweight is done. All of us are gone. Yep. The best ones, Cain Velasquez, myself, Verdum, Dos Santos, Miocic, everybody's gone.
Yep.
And then Jon moves into another
Era
of heavyweight, which is absurd to begin with. Jon's fought in 4 eras of fighters.
It's the one thing, though, if I can just stand there real quick, that George St. Pierre has. When you're sitting and you're making the argument, I argue George is the best. If somebody tries to challenge that, I will always bring into it, and it wasn't his choice. Somebody else matched him up. But the way it worked, he beat 3 generations. The Matt Hughes and the BJ Penn represented one generation. The Johnny Hendrixes
And
of the world.
Koscheck's
Yeah, and the
those
Koscheck's
bitches.
represented a 2nd generation. But the fact that Johnny Hendrix came in and picked up the belt and ran it after George left, now he's touched 3 different generations. And that wasn't Jon's doing or George's doing, but it's still the way that the story played, and it's still why I maintain George St. Pierre deserves credit for being GOAT.
Yeah, it's such a tremendous argument because it's true. But
true.
Jon Jones has done, He's fought a lot of guys in a lot of different eras. Let's see what happens Saturday. And as we get closer, it seems like the world, and especially people in the know, are going, this is a much closer fight than many are giving it credit for. In the co-main event, Charles Oliveira takes on Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's been gone for 2.5 years waiting for Conor McGregor. He finally now is fighting Charles Oliveira. Dude, many people in the know were like, I don't like this for Chandler. Not this guy. He literally went from fighting the biggest name who has risk still. Conor's still good. But he's not Conor of 2016 and 15.
Of course.
To Charles Oliveira now, who is probably one of the most dangerous human beings walking the planet, who still has that burning desire to be the champion.
Yeah. And when you speak about that, it's not just a matter of wondering what will happen when these guys fight. This is a rematch. We've already seen what will happen when those two guys fight. So now you have Charles Oliveira, who has stayed busy. He's gone through training camps. He's beat the scale before. He's dealt with the media. He's made that walk. And you have Chandler, who waited. And I can just share for you, waiting never helps, sadly, as human beings, but we just don't get better with time. Now, with all of that said, I spoke to Chandler, and he convinced me. He convinced me that he's going to win, and he really has reinvented himself. He's got a completely new strategy. What he and his coaches are working on are totally different. And I just want to offer you this one thing. He's going to do 3 things. I can't tell you what they are. He's going to do 3 things. But he's fully committed that I'm going to go do these 3 things. If that works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm going to make sure that I'm disciplined, and I go and do these 3 things. To the point that a rumor came out a week ago that Charles Oliveira was out, that Charles had a cut and he was out, and Dustin Poirier even fell for it. Dustin was going on social media and, doing the eyes like I'm looking, like, maybe I'll step in. And I believed it. I made a piece on it on YouTube, and it turned out that Charles and Charles's team created this false story just to mess with Michael Chandler.
Oh my God.
In those 3 or 4 days when it looked like it might be a replacement opponent, Chandler did not flinch because Chandler has committed to himself, I'm going to do 3 things that has nothing to do with who the opponent is. I have 3 things I've worked on. I'm going to be disciplined for the first time ever. I'm not just going to be exciting. I think that that's very intriguing. It's easier to say and harder to do, particularly at his age. But Michael Chandler just might be the most disciplined guy in the sport. He would at least be tied. I remember thinking that about the Conor fight. Okay, you got the most undisciplined guy against maybe the most disciplined guy. So the time off is going to matter, but Chandler did use it wisely. He did go through 3 training camps. He thought there was going to be Conor, but he did have 3 different dates in mind. So he's not quite been out as much as it might appear.
Chandler, man. So you seen the movie? There's a movie called The Avengers.
Yeah, of course.
There was a whole phase 1, 2, 3 that led to Thanos. The Infinity Stones.
Yep.
There's a guy named Captain America.
Yep.
Right. And before they go into war, Captain America always would get the troops, and he would say, "This is life, and this is the way that we will make sure that the world continues.
Yep.
Let's go get these Infinity Stones." And then they go into time travel, right? And they come back with the Infinity Stones, and it's awesome. But before they leave, Ant-Man then makes a statement and goes, he's really good at that. That's Michael Chandler, bro.
Sure.
Michael Chandler sat in the meeting, and he's all, he's like, I'm like, Mike, how do you stay focused in the midst? It's all about gratitude. And gratitude leads. And I'm like, see you at the top, Mike. I'm like, see you at the top. Like, it's like, he gets you, bro. He gets you with that positive attitude that, like, he just is so locked in. I don't understand how he does that.
I enjoyed that metaphor so much, by the way. I wish you'd have made that another 2 minutes. That was great.
Because people think it's fake.
Yeah.
People have long thought, oh, this cannot be real. It's him.
Yeah. Oh,
he does it all the time. And when he tells me he's been locked in, when he tells me he wasn't distracted because McGregor was in and out, I have to believe him.
Yep.
And if I have to believe him, I believe that it's going to be another one of those fights where, if you recall, down in Houston, Michael Chandler was about 3 punches from beating Charles Oliveira.
He was almost world champion.
Becoming the world champion.
The referee was looking at that fight.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Ref almost stood it.
Yes.
But then again, that speaks to who Oliveira is. Oliveira gets up, he resets himself, and he knocks him. Do you remember Oliveira's title reign? Every fight, boom, down goes Oliveira. Oliveira gets up, destroys you. It was amazing, bro.
It was amazing.
How important is this fight to not only Michael Chandler, but to Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira?
To be a big fight, to be at Madison Square Garden, if you want to go back and look traditionally, I mean, I'll just take you to 12 months ago when we were here. We put 2 belts up for main and co-main. We don't have a belt in this co-main. How did these guys get on the billing in this position? They're 37 years old. Well, I'll tell you, because the stakes are huge.
Yes.
Whoever wins here isn't necessarily next for Islam, but They're likely
they
in
say
the
they are.
conversation.
They both are saying that this
Yeah.
is the number one contenders fight. And I always wonder, I go, did they tell him that?
Yeah, I've wondered-
Or are
I've
these
wondered the
guys
same
just
thing.
saying it,
Sure.
right? Speaking into existence.
But I'm just sharing with you, for example, like, it doesn't greatly affect the rankings. It doesn't greatly affect that. 37-year-olds aren't usually the ones getting the push, but I will tell you, one of them just might go into a world title. One of them, DC, will never discuss a world title again. That is why this is such a big fight. The stakes here isn't just for the bounce that one is going to get. One is going to plummet. He will be one of the guys. He will be hoping for one or two more. He'll be wondering if I have a contract negotiation. He's just at that time in his career, and neither one of them wants to be that guy, obviously, and it's an interesting fight. I told you I think that Chandler can beat him. But if you ask me a question and follow up and you say, well, how's he going to do it? I'd have a hard time answering you.
Yeah,
Because I don't
yeah.
think he can strike with him. I think that's a real risky game. Can he take him down? Yes. Can he control him on the ground? That is the unknown,
Well,
at
he's
least
the greatest
for me.
submission artist in all time.
He's fantastic.
Oliveira-
He's slippery, man. He's slippery. Sarkarian couldn't maintain
Control him.
position.
No, he's so
he kept
good.
losing that position, and Sarkarian's is as solid of a base as anyone
He's a
that there
wrestler.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he could not maintain that position. I didn't know how good Charles was until that night. I was a bit of a hater, as a matter of fact. I never really forgave him for missing weight, and I never really forgave him for
Really?
is he 45 or 55.
Everybody thought he was a quitter.
Yeah, and then
He's
he comes
not.
out in disguise. He's got hair one day, and he's bleached the next day, and he's got sunglasses one day, and he's got no. And I'm going, why do you keep changing your look when we're trying to get people to know who you are? And then I got to watch him. They brought me down. I happened to be right in the very front row. Only person in front of me was Dana White. So I'm right there, and I could watch. And this was UFC 300, Sarkarian versus Oliveira. And Oliveira lost, but I got it. I got it in those 15 minutes. This is what everyone's been telling me. This is what everyone's talking about. This guy is dangerous. He never gives up. He never quits trying to find ways to win. With his style, he can win at any minute with his hands or with a submission, which Sarkarian almost found out, by the way. He almost lost that fight. And yeah, man, Charles is something special, but when Mike does talk about dedication and slowing things down, that's a very good strategy, whether it works or not, but that's a very good strategy when you are taking on somebody like Charles.
Yeah, he's taking
Plan to get to a decision and plan to have done more work than he did.
You
That's
find
a
yourself
good
in-
strategy.
yes, for sure. You limit the risk.
Yep.
But I mean, Chandler at this point is flying private jets home every week, and I mean, this dude is living the good life. See you at the top, Mike.
Yeah, he's got that tequila money.
He's got that
Right.
tequila money. Hey, Bo Nickal returns, but biggest fight of his career, Paul Craig.
Wow.
Is this too much, too soon for Bo Nickal, or is this right on time?
Thank you for saying that because people are dismissing this fight. Paul Craig, he beat a world champion in Jamal Hill. He beat the reigning, which will make him a two-time #1 contender in Ankalaev. And by the way, that was
Can
at
you
light
believe that?
heavyweight.
I know.
He's coming down to 85. They don't even have him ranked. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Paul Craig is a legit tough guy. Paul Craig is not at home right now worried about Bo Nickal, worried about getting taken down, worried about getting ground out. His mind's not working that way. All these other opponents were trying to survive. Paul Craig is going to try to beat you. He is not intimidated by you. And I'm just saying, that's a big difference. And I think that Paul Craig deserves a little bit of respect. And if we can't get Paul respect, how are we supposed to get Bo a bounce? He goes from unranked to unranked. Was an unranked guy that beat the world champion. Excuse me. Give Paul Craig a little bit of credit. You're the first one to admit that. I'm glad somebody did. It's a hard fight.
It's a very hard fight. And honestly, Chael, Bo really can't wrestle. It's going to be one of those times where every time Bo Nickal wrestles, he puts himself in the danger zone. Because Paul Craig is so good at submission.
He's slippery, man.
We are going to see Bo Nickal have to show skills that if you weren't sure that he had them, you will know by the end of Saturday night whether or not Bo Nickal can do what he has done to this point against a higher level of competition. Because Paul Craig is that good.
You can't hold him down. It's a problem. It's a lot like Oliveira. You can't just get him there and hold him there old school.
Man.
Yeah, no, he's slipping.
This
He's
dude
coming
has
between.
such
He's off
good
balancing you.
Triangle.
Remember
choke.
that day we worked out with Bachecha? But,
Oh my
but
God, he beat
we
the
couldn't
shit out.
hold him in a position. He would bump you this way and he'd swerve you this way.
He beat
or he
both
would
of us
off balance
bad.
you, yeah, and then come right into a
was so
triangle. You
good.
go, what is this guy even doing? Paul Craig has that level of
Yes.
busyness on the bottom. Bo, as great as he is not going to just hold him there. That
Bo's
much
a
I can
rookie.
tell you.
Bo
Yes.
is, we talk about Pereira being a rookie. Bo Nickal is a rookie in fighting. He's 6-0. And if he ain't careful, that O may have to go. Hey, dude, you should have seen what I did yesterday. You know what I did? So I'm interviewing Chris Weidman. And at the end of the interview,
You look strong, by the way.
I'm
You look
trying-
good. Are you lifting?
I gotta lose. Yeah, I start, dude. And I lifted with my son, and my body hurt.
Good for you, man.
But anyhow, so I'm talking to Chris Weidman as we wrap the show, and I go, guys, make sure to watch Chris Weidman on pay-per-view next week. Chris Weidman, a guy who will never back down, because you know he has that song.
Oh, he won't
back down. And Chael and I won't back down. and neither will Stipe Miocic or Jon Jones as they lock horns for the heavyweight title from Madison Square Garden this weekend at UFC 309. Guys, catch Chael and I every Monday and Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts, ESPN Plus, ESPN2, ESPN MMA YouTube. For the bad guy, Chael Sonnen, I'm Daniel Cormier. Neither of us will back down, and neither of us are going to miss UFC 309. Let's go.